Why don't you run? Human. The alien forest was silent except for the crackle of a small campfire. Two pale moons hung above, their light mixing with the soft blue glow of giant trees. Mist drifted between their roots like lazy ghosts. Evan sat cross-legged by the fire, holding a piece of bread in one hand and a metal cup in the other. His clothes were worn but clean. His face was calm, almost bored, as if he were waiting for something. From the shadows, 12 tall alien hunters crept forward. Their skin looked like black armor, ridged and sharp, with eyes burning like molten amber. They moved like predators, each step silent on the forest floor. At the front was Commander Syra, taller than the rest, her claws longer, her voice sharper. She stopped just outside the firelight, watching the human carefully. Evan didn't move. He didn't even look surprised. He took another bite of bread, chewed slowly, then set the piece on his knee. The hunters closed in, forming a wide circle around the campfire. Their bodies blocked out the glow of the moons, casting long shadows over the human. Syra finally spoke, her voice low and curious. Why don't you run, human? Evan looked up at her, his dark eyes steady. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he smiled faintly. Because running wouldn't help you. The words hung in the cold air. The hunters exchanged glances. Syra tilted her head, unsure if she had heard correctly. You speak boldly for prey, she said. I'm not prey, Evan replied. The forest seemed to grow quieter. Even the crackling fire softened, as if listening. Syra stepped closer, her claws catching the firelight. Then what are you? Evan shrugged lightly. Alive. And planning to stay that way. Some of the hunters hissed in amusement. Others felt uneasy, though they didn't know why. The human's calmness was wrong. Prey was supposed to fear. Prey was supposed to run. Syra narrowed her eyes. You know what we are. Yes, Evan said, sipping from his cup. And I know why you came, but you're too late. Too late for what? She demanded before Evan could answer. A low sound rolled through the forest, a deep, vibrating roar that made the ground tremble. It came from far away, but it was powerful enough to make the alien hunters stiffen. Another roar followed. Closer this time, the hunters instinctively looked into the mist, their claws lifting. They had hunted on hundreds of worlds, but this sound was something they didn't know. Evan placed his cup beside him and leaned forward slightly. You hear that? That's why I'm still sitting here. Syra's gaze snapped back to him. What is it? Evan smiled again. But it wasn't friendly, something you shouldn't meet. The third roar shook the leaves loose from the glowing trees. This time, the ground shook harder, and the fire's flames bent under the sudden rush of air. The hunters shifted position, some stepping back from the human. Syra forced herself to stay still, but she could feel her pulse quicken. Are you saying this thing protects you? She asked slowly. Evan didn't answer. Instead, he looked past her, into the forest. His eyes locked on something in the mist. Syra turned to follow his gaze. Far beyond the firelight, two massive shapes were moving between the trees. The glow from the trees lit their skin dark, scaled, and massive. Their steps were slow but heavy, like the earth itself had to make room for them. The hunters' formation broke slightly. The air grew colder. Evan spoke softly, almost to himself. And they're not fond of uninvited guests. Syra felt a shiver run down her spine. The hunter becomes the hunted. The two massive shapes in the mist moved slowly, their steps heavy, deliberate. Each time they shifted, the ground gave a soft quake, and the glowing blue trees seemed to bend slightly, as if bowing in respect or fear. Commander Syra's instincts screamed to attack. But something about the size of those silhouettes made even her hesitate. She had hunted on worlds where predators were twice her size, but these felt different. The hunters spread out, forming a tighter circle around the human. Their claws were ready, their muscles tense, but their eyes kept flicking to the shadows between the trees. Evan stayed seated by the fire, his face calm. You should leave, he said quietly. While you still can. One of the hunters snarled. You think we fear shadows? Evan looked up at him. No, you fear what's in them. The first creature stepped into the firelight. It was huge, icily 4 times the height of a hunter. Its body covered in thick, scaled armor that shimmered in shades of black and silver. Its head was long and ridged, with eyes that burned like white fire. Rows of sharp teeth glinted inside its half-open jaws, and its breath came out in visible waves of heat. The hunters froze. Even Syra's confidence faltered for a heartbeat. She had no record of anything like this in the galactic databases. From the other side of the camp, the second creature appeared just as large, but darker, with scars across its chest and a slow, measured gait. They stopped just outside the circle of firelight. Their heads turned toward Evan first, and then to the alien hunters. The air was thick now, heavy like deep water pressing on the chest. Every sound, the fire crackle, the forest breeze seemed far away. One hunter whispered, "Why? Aren't they attacking him?" Evan heard, "It because I'm not their enemy." Syra narrowed her eyes. "What are you to them?" Evan met her gaze. "A guest. One they've known for a long time." The first creature let out a low growl that made the ground vibrate. It took one slow step toward the circle. The hunters immediately shifted back, their formation breaking. Evan's voice cut through the tension. "If you run now, you might live." The arrogant hunter from earlier spat on the ground. "We don't run." He leaped forward, claws raised, but before his feet even touched the ground again, the darker creature moved. Its massive arms swung, faster than anything that size should be able to. The hunter was hit midair, sent flying into the trees with a sickening crack. He didn't get up. The rest of the hunters froze, staring at the spot where their comrade had disappeared. The forest was silent again, except for the sound of the wounded man's claws dropping to the dirt. Syra's heart pounded. She had been in dangerous hunts before, but never against something that could erase one of her soldiers without even trying. The first creature stepped forward. Its burning white eyes locked on her. She tried to hold its gaze, but something deep inside her, something primal, screamed at her to look away. Evan stood up slowly. "This is your last chance. Go." The creatures stayed still, waiting. It was almost as if they were letting the aliens decide their fate. Syra clenched her jaw, torn between pride and survival. Her hunters looked at her, silently begging for an order. From deep in the forest, a third roar sounded louder, closer, and far more aggressive. Evan glanced toward the sound, then back to Syra. "You don't want to meet the third one." The answer revealed the third roar shook the forest like thunder rolling through the ground. It was closer now. So close that the mist between the glowing blue trees rippled as if a great wind had passed through. Commander Syra felt the hair along her neck rise. She had no idea what kind of creature made that sound, but every instinct told her it was worse than the two already standing before her. The two giants near the fire shifted, their heads turning toward the sound. The darker one's claws flexed, scraping the dirt. The larger one's white eyes narrowed, and for the first time Syra thought she saw. Caution. Evan calmly kicked a log deeper into the fire. Sparks rose into the night air. "You've already tested their patience," he said. "If the third arrives, there won't be any chance to walk away." One of the younger hunters whispered, "We should go." Syra shot him a glare, but her own claws trembled slightly. She turned back to Evan. "Why are they protecting you? No human could tame beasts like these." Evan looked into the fire for a moment, then met her eyes. "I didn't tame them. I just listened." "Listened?" Syra asked. "They were here long before us," Evan said. "Before humans. Before your people. Before most of the galaxy knew this world existed. I came here because I wanted to understand what everyone else was too afraid to face." The larger creature stepped closer to Evan, lowering its head slightly. The firelight reflected off its black armor-like scales. It made no move to attack, only stood between Evan and the aliens. "They don't like trespassers," Evan continued, "but they like me." Syra's voice was low, almost a growl. "Why?" Evan smiled faintly. "Because I'm one of them now." The dark creature rumbled deep in its chest, almost like agreement. A branch snapped in the distance, heavy, deliberate. The third roar came again, and this time it was close enough to make the ground shake. Syra's hunters began to step back, their discipline breaking. The two visible creatures turned toward the sound, their bodies tensing. Evan took a step toward Syra. "I told you before, running wouldn't help you." That wasn't a threat. It was advice. The third shape began to appear in the mist, massive, hunched, and radiating raw power. Its eyes burned red like molten stone. The forest seemed to darken as it approached, the glow of the trees dimming. That was enough. Syra raised her hand in a sharp signal. "Fall back." The hunters moved quickly, retreating into the trees without another word. The third creature stopped just short of the firelight, its gaze following them as they disappeared into the forest. Only when they were gone did it turn its head toward Evan. He nodded slightly. The creature gave a low, rumbling growl, almost a greeting before melting back into the mist. The other two followed, their massive forms vanishing between the glowing trunks until only the night and the fire remained. Evan sat back down, picking up the bread he'd left on his knee earlier. Far above, the alien dropship engines echoed faintly as Syra's team lifted off from the forest. She sat in silence, staring at the floor, her claws tapping slowly. One of her hunters finally asked, "Commander, why didn't we kill him?" Syra didn't look up, because he wasn't the prey. She thought of his calm face, his steady eyes, and his answer to her question. "You don't run when you're home." She realized then that the human had never been trapped in that forest. The forest had been his fortress, and the galaxy would never believe what she had seen. The end.